Everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Dr. Kate Davis, a chiropractor and functional medicine doctor who helps women heal chronic gut health issues and reclaim their health. What makes her work especially powerful is that it didn't start in a clinic. It started with her own struggle. After nearly a decade of dealing with unresolved gut problems, she discovered the root cause was something unexpected, a severe parasite infection. That experience didn't just change her health, it changed her entire approach to healing. Today, she helps hundreds of women move beyond symptoms like bloating, constipation, IBS, and acid reflux by addressing the root cause, not just managing the surface. Dr. Kate, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to chat today.
All right, so yes, heads up, we're gonna be diving a little bit into your 20s. Mhm.
hmm
In your 20s, what was your relationship with your health like before everything started showing up?
Yeah, well, I was a D1 athlete, so I threw discus in college, so I was very fit. I mean, we worked out 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day. And so I was, a picture of health. Like I was thin, I was muscular, I was very fit for my age group compared to a lot of people, in college who tend to just drink a lot and, not eat the best food. But my diet was terrible because I was always one of those people who is, I don't know if you've heard of like the skinny fat where you're just skinny your whole life, so you just eat whatever you want. So, I mean, a lot of it was self-inflicted in terms of the gut issues that I got because I would eat whatever I wanted. I didn't really care because I never really gained weight if I ate candy or, bad foods or things like that. So, but overall, like I felt great. I had a lot of energy. I could focus. I mean, I did have a pretty bad head injury right before college when I was 18. So that kind of affected my ability to focus and like memory and things like that. But besides that, my energy was good. I was healthy. I was fit. I didn't look like someone who would have severe health issues, basically.
Wow. Okay. Like you said just now, you didn't look like someone who would have severe health issues, right? So you never foresaw it coming. So now,
Yeah.
what when your symptoms started, right? When you eventually had the parasite infection, when
hmm
it started, what were the symptoms and how did you interpret it? That what did you interpret your body was doing?
Yeah, well, I just had really severe sharp pain in my gut, especially in the upper abdomen. I couldn't eat anything besides a really small amount of food without feeling extremely full and bloated. I was constipated for 13 days, when this really started and it was really bad. Like I didn't have a bowel movement for almost 2 weeks. And so it was just really, really bad, really uncomfortable. Couldn't sit up straight in class. I was in chiropractic school at the time and I'd had food poisoning twice right before all this started. And for those of you who don't know, like food poisoning isn't always food poisoning. It's usually just a reflection of how terrible your gut function is and the fact that you might have other infections going on in your body that are creating those food poisoning symptoms. So, yeah, it just started with a lot of pain in the stomach, inability to go to the bathroom, bloating. I had acid reflux at the time. So, it was just a lot going on. It was really uncomfortable.
Okay. All right. So yeah, going through those things, right? It said that you asked what the symptoms was like, and you were told that your issues could not be fixed, right? So what did it feel like when you were told that they couldn't fix your issues?
Yeah, I mean, I went to, everyone, tells you, oh, just go see a GI doc. So I went to a GI doctor. And yeah, they just gave me two terrible options. They're like, well, you have gastroparesis, which just means if you break down the Latin root word, it just means stomach paralysis, which means that your food, after you eat it, it's not being digested properly and it's not being sent into your intestines within a reasonable amount of time. So it just kind of sits in your stomach. And that's why I was having a lot of those pain issues and, inability to actually digest my food properly. And they just said, well, we can either give you a drug or we can remove your intestines. And I was like, I'm not doing either of those options because one of the major side effects of the drug was that you could end up with permanent facial twitches. And I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. So luckily I found someone at school. I asked around and I was like, hey, do you guys know any doctors, like chiropractor, naturopath, whatever, who can figure out what's going on because I don't want to go the medical route anymore. And luckily, I was able to find someone who was able to give me some relief, and that kind of started my journey into, functional medicine and all that other stuff. So,
Wow, okay. Now I want us to dive into your journey and your discovery, right? So you spent nearly a decade dealing with gut issues. So
mhm.
what finally led you to discover the parasite infection?
Yeah, well, I'd gotten a lot of relief from that doctor I went to initially, and I just completely overhauled my diet. So for the first time in my life, I actually started eating healthy. And so, and that helped a lot, obviously, like removing a lot of those triggers in my food that were creating inflammation and allowing those infections to overgrow. But every time I strayed from that diet, I felt terrible. And so I was on a really strict paleo, gluten-free, dairy-free diet. And and the problem never really got resolved. But I just kind of gotten to the point where I was like, well, if all I have to avoid the rest of my life is dairy and gluten, it'll be okay. It's fine, whatever. Like at least I'm not having extreme pain and constipation and bloating anymore. So those symptoms had gone away. But then I had a really stressful life event happen. And all the symptoms came back and they were way worse than they were before. And stress is a huge trigger for a lot of people with, chronic health issues. And so once that happened, luckily my friend was in town who's a functional medicine doctor. And she just looked at me because I was telling her everything that was going on. I had all the gut issues again, plus my joints were swelling up for no reason. My hands were swelling up after I worked out. I was on the verge of an autoimmune disease. And she was like, okay, let's do some testing. We're going to do some functional medicine testing, figure out what the heck is going on. And she did testing for me and found out that I had a massive parasite infection. And that wasn't the only thing going on. I had a lot of issues. I had gallbladder dysfunction, leaky gut. I had other co-infections like mold toxicity, fungal overgrowth. I mean, my body was a mess. I had just kept everything at bay with my super strict, diet. And then once I had that stressful life event happen, it just threw everything out the window. And, my health just really took a huge downturn. But, after she put me on a really specific detox plan, we changed some of my lifestyle stuff, got better quality sleep, all sorts of simple stuff that we take for granted. All my symptoms went away and I passed hundreds of parasites during this detox process. I mean, it was pretty horrifying, but also really satisfying to know that there was a physical reason why I was feeling so terrible that you could actually see. And after I passed like a 3 foot long one, that's when all my gut issues started going away. So I had a huge 3 foot parasite and then, hundreds of other ones that were, a lot smaller than that. But yeah, it was pretty wild.
Wow. Oh my. Okay, so I'm curious, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think these root causes of some gut issues are often missed, especially in traditional healthcare system?
Yeah, well, it's because they don't usually test for them. And a lot of times when they test for parasites, all they do is a stool test. But stool tests have a lot of false negatives, which means that when you do the test, they don't find any parasites or any parasite larvae. So they tell you, nope, you don't have parasites, you're clean. But parasites can hide anywhere in your body. And so they usually won't show up on, a stool test or blood work. The only way you'd see it on blood work is, if you had certain markers like really high eosinophils, which doesn't even pop up for most people who have parasites. So they're really, really hard to detect. But in terms of other things like mold toxicity and heavy metals, it's just not part of the traditional Western medicine model. They're just looking at basic blood work, which doesn't show you a lot about what's going on. They do, a cholesterol panel or a metabolic panel to show like blood sugar and things like that, and kidney function and a CBC to check for infections, but it doesn't really go very deep. And so that's where functional medicine really thrives is they're doing really advanced testing, like urine testing for toxins or, really advanced stool testing that can actually show a lot of different markers that can indicate parasites or fungal overgrowth or, SIBO and bacterial overgrowth. And so it's a different type of model. And they just don't really learn that. Or in medical school, they're told, oh, don't have to worry about parasites. We live in America. They don't exist here, which is total garbage because they do. I see them on probably about 75% of the people I work with have parasites. And granted, I do work with gut issues, so obviously it's going to be a lot more common, but they're in America. They don't just stop at the border and, say, "Oh, well, it's America. We can't cross over." It's like, no, they exist here. It's like they might not be as common as other places like Asia or South America or things like that, but they do exist. And it's just, I think it's that ideology that medical doctors are taught in school that makes them think that, oh, we don't have to check for this. It's not a real thing. You haven't traveled out of the country. You haven't gone to those places that have parasites, so there's no way that you have them.
So now I think, right, the goal is to encourage people to look to functional medicine. Right. Especially for people who are probably in the situation you were, right? Those people who they are telling, oh, you have nothing wrong with you or your situation cannot be fixed, right? True.
Hmm.
And these are like what the traditional healthcare system is telling them. I'd encourage those
Yeah.
people to look towards, functional medicine. Because that way, who knows, they might just be a solution to whatever problem you have currently. Because I'm trying to imagine you never looked towards functional medicine. It would have
Oh,
been
not before that. No, not before I had all those issues. Definitely not. Yeah, I didn't even
wow.
know what it was. I just, I didn't really know much about any sort of alternative healthcare because I grew up in the South in America and functional medicine it really blew up in California, very common on the West Coast, but not so much on the South or on the East Coast. Now it's a lot more common in like New England and things like that. But yeah, I mean, back when I was a kid, you just go to the doctor, the medical doctor. There weren't any functional medicine doctors around back then. So it's definitely an emerging field for sure.
All right. Well, okay. So, let's say for someone, right? Let's say someone comes to you with gut issues. What's the first thing you look for that others might not look for?
I mean, the first thing I'm going to do is you've always got to test, right? Like if you're not assessing, you're guessing. And so that's the biggest thing I see with people is they'll just buy a supplement like, "Oh, you've got issues, try probiotic or try fiber," or, the generic advice, right? So people just buy a supplement and kind of go after their gut issues and hope for the best. And most of the time you're not really going to get a solution from that because if you don't know what you're targeting, if you don't know what infections and toxins are in your body damaging those organs and making them unable to function properly, and you don't remove them, it doesn't matter how many supplements you're on, you're not going to fix the problem. And so I always am going to test for infections and toxins because they're the most overlooked part of that healing process. So that's usually where I start with people.
All right. Well, talking about the gut issues, the gut health, right? You know, um, do you think like what are the major things that affect the gut health, right? Is it physical or lifestyle, or is it even stress or environment? What do you think are the major things that could affect your gut health?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is stress. If you look at research, stress is actually known to create what's called leaky gut, where that gut lining becomes so inflamed that it just starts, expanding and you get these giant holes in your intestinal wall that allow food to slip through, toxins to slip through into your bloodstream, create systemic inflammation issues. And so stress is a huge one. So if you're under chronic periods of stress, that's going to be the number one thing that's going to mess up your gut. Head injuries are another big one. So I told you I had that head injury right before college. I think that's what started triggering a lot of the gut issues that I had. It just, didn't pop up until 5 years later. So that's a big one because that brain gut connection, there's a part of your brain that houses the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is what tells your bowels to, create a bowel movement and have, those normal bowel movements 2, 3 times a day. So head injuries are a big one. And then just, when you're in that state of chronic stress, the other thing that goes down is your immune system. So now you're less likely to be able to fight off things like parasites and mold toxins and, fungal overgrowth or bacteria in your food. And so that creates a lot of those infections that allows them to overgrow. And so obviously if you're in your early 20s, you're in college, you're trying to figure out what to do with the rest of your life. It's a very stressful time period. So anything you can do to reduce stress is going to really help, whether that's journaling, seeing a therapist, being outside, getting some sunshine, doing some breathing exercises, grounding. I mean, there's so many easy ways to regulate your nervous system that a lot of us take for granted. And the biggest one is sleep. Do you go to bed at 10 p.m. every night? Do you wake up? Do you get a full 8 hours of sleep? Most people in college are living off 3 to 4 hours of sleep every night, and they're like, whatever, I'm young, I'm healthy, it's fine. And you don't realize how much of a toll that takes on your body. So, yeah, so that's kind of those are probably the biggest things I would say, but they're all interconnected.
Wow, wow. Do you know, you mentioned this as the biggest thing, but the funny thing about it is people don't think it's a big deal, right? Especially
Yeah.
stress. One would
Yeah.
never think stress can be a major, it could be something major when it comes to gut health. They would never think stress was among, I would, for me personally, I would think it's diet, right? Probably my diet is not working. I'm not eating healthy. That's why I'm probably having gut issues or gut health issues, right? So the fact that
Yeah.
you mentioned stress is something people need to know. They need to take their health
Mhm.
more seriously and try to
Yeah.
reduce stress, right? And also in the quest of, trying to heal your gut health, or, like they say, prevention is better than cure, right? So for one way we could try to live healthier and prevent stress, like you said, is sleeping,
Hmm.
right? We need to sleep when we are supposed to sleep, go to bed when it's time, wake up when it's time,
Hmm.
and yeah, don't operate on 3 hours of sleep. It's not feasible.
Oh yeah. I
So,
mean, I was functioning on 4 hours of sleep almost every night for the 4 years that I was in college. And I was like, oh, I feel fine. I'm energetic. Like it didn't affect me, at least in the way that I thought it would. But this stuff, when you get serious health issues, it doesn't just pop up overnight. It literally takes
mm,
years or even decades for this stuff to show up. So if you don't take care of yourself in your 20s and your 30s, you're going to have health issues in your 40s and 50s. It's going to happen. And so
mm,
even if you feel good, don't always rely on symptoms to be the indicator of how healthy you are. That's the last thing to show up and the
mm,
first thing to go away when your body starts healing. So you always want to start at a young age. And yeah, diet is huge, right? Especially in America, we have, our food quality is terrible here. It's awful. And so we've really got to,
mm,
focus on getting good quality food and like eating a whole foods diet, stop with the processed garbage like Cheetos and Fritos and Doritos and all the chips and, junk food that people put in
mm,
their bodies. But it's easy when you're young to just get stuck in that trap of, oh, I'm just gonna eat Krispy Kreme and Oreos and pizza because I'm young. I don't gain weight. It's fine. And that's where I was, like I never had an issue with weight. So I just thought, oh, it doesn't matter what I put in my body, but it has a huge effect. So that is a good point that you brought up there.
exactly right. And like you said, we in our 20s, we feel so invisible. Like, oh, nothing's gonna happen. I'm young. I'm just gonna do whatever
Yep.
I
But your
well,
30-year-old self will be really mad at you if you don't take care of your 20-year-old self. So,
exactly. So yeah, it's important we start living healthy now. It even becomes easier when we grow. If we can start,
yeah.
now, if we could literally start now, it becomes better and easier and healthier when we grow.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you so much, Dr. Kate.
Yeah. You're welcome.
This has been amazing. And yeah, finally I have that
Oh,
health
I'm
issues and feeling stuck.
sorry. Yeah, so a good place for people to start in their 20s is just again like prioritizing sleep is going to be so important. That's when your body heals. That's when your liver detoxes. That's when a lot of your hormones are made. That's when your brain detoxes at night. And so I know it's tough because, when you're in college, you just want to stay up late and hang out with your friends and, do whatever you want because it's the first time you've had full freedom in your life. So you don't want to go to bed early. But honestly, if you can prioritize sleep at a young age, it's really gonna, benefit you later on in life. If you go to bed at least the latest 11 p.m. and wake up at, 7 and try to get as close to that 8 hours of sleep every night that you can, or at least bare minimum, you should be getting 7. And so really prioritizing sleep, not just getting stuck inside all day. I know it's hard when you're studying a lot and you have exams and homework, but go outside, bring your books outside, lay in the grass, get some grounding, get some sunshine. The sun and outdoors and nature is so healing for your body. It really helps regulate that nervous system. And then Yeah, like, journaling is great. Simple things like breathing exercise. There's so many things you can look up online now. You literally have a whole library of stuff in your pocket, and you can just look up breathing exercises to calm down my nervous system. One of my favorite ones is called box breathing, but with more of a
Hmm.
focus on exhaling. So basically, what that means is you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you breathe out for 8. So I always recommend breathing out twice as long as you breathe in because that really helps calm down the nervous system. And then you hold for 4. So it's basically like 4, 4, 8, 4. So box breathing. So basically, breathe in for 4, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 8, hold for 4, and do that for like 3 to 5 minutes every single day. It'll really help calm you down, especially if you're stressed about finals or midterms or whatever, or maybe you just got a new job and you're in your mid 20s and you're trying to figure out what to do with your life and you're not really sure like if you're going in the right direction. Just knowing that you're still super young, you can figure it out. I had a few jobs before I realized I wanted to go to chiropractic school, and I was really glad that I had them because it made me realize I never wanted to be an employee ever again. So for me that was really beneficial, to know at a young age, I will never work for anyone else. I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to do my own thing. And for some people, you just need that experience in a really terrible job to make you go in the right direction. So, yeah, I think that those are the best places to start. And then starting to clean up your diet. You don't have to do it 100% all the time, but if your food has more than one ingredient, it's probably not going to be good for you. The ingredient should be the food that you're eating: beef, chicken, salmon, vegetables, fruits, dairy if you can handle it, things like that, and just get rid of the junk food. It's not going to do you any good. It's going to trash your whole system, and you're going to have a lot of issues later on in life. So that's where I would start.
Hmm. Wow, thank you so much. That was powerful, Dr. Kate.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. I feel like I've learned so much already, right? And
That's
yes,
good.
I've learned so much. And I hope my listeners are also gonna, take from this and start to apply it to their daily lives. All right.
Hmm.
So thank you so much, Dr. Kate. And where can listeners get to learn more about you and everything you do?
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me. This is really great. I think it's good to talk to the younger generation because a lot of my patients wish they had known this stuff when they were in their 20s. So I'm really glad that you asked me to be on the podcast. So thanks for having me on. I'm sure it's going to bless a lot of people. But yeah, the best place to find me is Instagram. I have a ton of free content on there about, how to move the needle forward in the gut healing process, how to keep yourself healthy. I have so much information on there. So go to my Instagram. It's at Dr. Kate Davis, DrKateDavis. Just hit that follow button. Um, and just start there. And I also have, YouTube channel, same handle at Dr. Kate Davis. I just started a podcast recently, so there's not that many episodes on there yet, but there will be probably by the time you listen to this episode. But yeah, it's just really how to move the needle and like how to start cleaning up your lifestyle, how to really just support good gut health and good gut function. So it's called Unconventional Medicine with Dr. Kate Davis. You can find it on all the podcast platforms, but that's really the best place to start. Start listening to podcasts, start listening to other people who talk about this stuff because the younger you can start, the better off you're gonna be thriving in your 40s and 50s when all of your friends are struggling. And so, if you don't have your health, you can't really enjoy your life later on. So don't ever sacrifice that just for fun and a good time. Like really prioritize it at a young age. So I'd start there.
All right. Wow. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kate. This has been amazing. And conversations like this are always so important, especially for we young adults, right? Because,
Mhm.
like you say, catch them young, right? And we need to know
Yeah.
these things so that we could live better and healthier lifestyle. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
Kate. Yeah, I'm gonna be reaching out via Instagram after this, right?
Okay.
All
Good.
right. All right. So thank you. And to my listeners, thanks for tuning into Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. All right, Dr. K, do have a wonderful day ahead of you.
You too.